Thanks, Karen. Thanks, everybody, for being here. My name's Gary Miller, and I'm an alcoholic. I'm extremely excited about being a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, although I was not extremely excited about joining Alcoholics Anonymous. I have a home group. My home group is the primary purpose group. It's a book study meeting, and then we also have a discussion meeting. I have a sponsor. I've had numerous sponsors, and this period of time, and I have a sobriety date. My sobriety date's October 6th of 86. I've had three sponsors pass away, and so I've gone. In fact, right now it's 20 years ago, my first sponsor passed away. My first sponsor was a fellow by the name of Tom, and when I got sober, I didn't really want to get sober, but well, I'll tell you a little about my background. I came from a very loving, caring family. Came from a very Christian home. I have two sisters that are older than I am. My parents were very God-fearing people. Went to church on a regular basis. And so I really can't say that there's any alcohol in my home as a child. All of my drinking is of my own volition, and I did that. I left high school, went on to college, and I didn't drink in college, partially because I was involved in sports, and so anyway, I didn't drink there. But when I got out of college, I started drinking, and I don't really know. I really can't. I really don't remember even my first drink. I just started drinking. I just know that I obviously had crossed the line real quick because I got into difficulty pretty quickly. I had a good job. I'll just tell you that I do know how to drink, and with my drinking, I have lost a job. I've lost a family. I've lost relationship with my parents. I was excommunicated from a Protestant church. I was disinherited by my parents, and that's just the beginning of the problems that I caused. I'm going to talk a little bit about how I got sober. That's really important to me, and I absolutely love AA. Now, I didn't when I got sober. I started my last drunk on the 3rd of October. And I started in a bar, which is amazing because I was not a bar drinker. I was a home drinker. I was always wanted to drink alone, and I have no reason to know why it was that I started drinking in the bar, but I did. And anyway, I did my normal thing. Went into a blackout, didn't go home. All the kinds of things that I did that was just really unacceptable behavior. And that was on a Friday, and Sunday I decided I got sober in South Mississippi, right down on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. And I drank all day Saturday. And then on Sunday, I was actually in the woods in a rural area. And I decided that I was going to commit suicide. So, and there was no real reason for that. I didn't have a reason for wanting to do that. It was just nothing unusual was going on. But I was supposed to I had been meeting with a therapist for about 6 months. Met with a therapist, started in February of 86. And I would go every Monday evening and go to her office and lie to her for an hour. And then, anyway, so for some reason I thought, well, I won't be there. If I commit suicide, I won't be there. So I need to call her. So I waited on Monday morning. I called and said I wouldn't be there. She said, why? And I said, because I'm going to commit suicide. Now you can realize that I was snotting and crying and really making a big deal out of it because it was all about me. And anyway, she was very, she was just pretty amazing lady. She said, well, where are you? And I said, well, I'm not going to tell you. And she said, well, since you're going to commit suicide and I can't come and see you, she said, I've learned to care for you. Would you come to my office before you commit suicide? Would you come to my office so I can tell you goodbye and that I love you, and then you can go? And I said, well, okay, I'll do that. And I did that. I drove to her office, and I left there 35 days later. I went through a treatment center, and the amazing thing is that when I left, my vehicle was still in the parking lot right where I parked it. The only thing it was missing was the shotgun that I was going to commit suicide with. Everything else was still there. I have that shotgun today, and I keep it as a memento just of where I was at that point. Most folks getting out of treatment after 28 days. My 28th day, they said they wanted me to stay another week. And I thought that was amazing. I thought they wanted me to stay because I was a great asset to the newcomers coming in. And so I thought, well, I'd stick around another week because the food was good and the comfort was there. And it was a lot better than sleeping in my truck in the woods. And so I said, okay, well, that 28th day when I went into treatment or into group, they had a room full of people in there and they did an in-house intervention on me. And they realized that for 28 days, I was sitting in there lying to them and telling them what I wanted to say. And just, I was just so self-centered. Very honestly, that saved my life. Now, at the time, I was so angry that if I could have got that gun out of my truck, I'd have shot them all. I was really pissed off. But one of the things, now I got into what Clancy talks about, the perception. And now a lot of my recovery was on perception. I was under the perception that I couldn't get out of treatment until I got a sponsor. I didn't think I needed a sponsor. I thought I was pretty sharp. In fact, I thought I wasn't in that treatment center very long, and I'd figured out I was going to start a treatment center because I figured out they were probably doing the right kind of things. I was going to start one when I got out of there. Anyway, my perception was that I needed to get a sponsor just so I could get out of treatment, and so I did that. I had no real reason for getting one. I didn't think. And I think God wants me sober. I'll be honest about it. And I say that because when I got sober in 86 in October. In November of 86, the area where I was going to meetings on the coast, there was a clubhouse there that started meetings in November at noon and 5:15. So now I got out of treatment the 11th of November, and a couple of things had happened. I had been cheating the IRS because I'd gotten fired from my job, couldn't get a job, so I started my own business. And everything was fine, except that I was deducting my fiduciary taxes from my employees. I just wasn't making a deposit in the bank. And it scared me at first, but after you do that for about 6 months and they don't come and get you, you think you're okay. They caught me right at Thanksgiving of 86. That's when they caught me. I was just fresh out of treatment and I got the notice from them. And the first part of December, the state caught me, and the state came in and put a lien on everything that I owned. So I was really in a tight spot. Then the other thing that happened to me when I got out of the treatment and I wanted to go home, I was married at the time and I went to go home. And the problem was my key didn't fit the front door. So now I couldn't get it, and I was really in a mess. And then I went to Motel 6, still there. I just went by it just about a month ago. I drove by it. I went to Motel 6 the second day. When I went to get in my room at Motel 6, they locked me out. I couldn't get in because my credit card wasn't any good. It was so I was in a really, really tough bind. I believe that God wanted me sober. I believe I'm sober today because God wanted me sober. Not quite sure what all he's got in store for me, but I got through all of that through a lot of difficulty. I always think sometimes when we say, at least for me, number one, it was sponsorship. I can tell you that right now. That's the key to the whole thing for me, because I wanted to jump on stuff in the book. Right, number one, Tom went to a book study meeting, a 12-12 meeting every week. So I wanted to be a good sponsee. So I went to a book study meeting, a 12-12 meeting every week. He also said that a sponsorship is a commitment. I had to commit to him. He'd commit to me. And that was on Fridays. I used to go to his house every Friday. And that's how we got started. And when we got there, I'll never forget, he said, he opened up a big book and he said, see this first page on the left side? And I said, yeah, there's nothing there. And he said, that's exactly what we know. And that's where we're going to start. We're going to start with knowing nothing. And then we'll go through the book. And he took me through this book. And he started to point out some things to me real quick that were very, very important. He said, this is stuff that's going to happen that you're going to be aware of. And I thought about this today. It's on page 20, the little statement of our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depend upon our constant thought of others and how we can help meet their needs. And so one of the things he told me early on, he said, when you go to bed at night, you think about somebody that you've been to a meeting with or you've heard about that says they have a problem. And he said, we're so self-centered. And he said, so what I want you to do is you put their name on a piece of paper and put it next to your alarm clock. And so that when you wake up in the morning, you look over to see what time it is, and there you'll see, Herkimer's name on that piece of paper. And he said, then just say real quickly, God, I hope Herkimer has a good day, or whatever the name. And he said, that's all the time you're going to have for that, because you're going to get up and go to the bathroom. And by the time you get to the bathroom, you're going to be thinking about yourself. And so he said, then put a note on the mirror in your bathroom that says, Gary, you're wrong. And I did that. And, to this day, this very day, I no longer write a note and put it next to but I know when I go to bed at night, when I retire at night, I know who I'm going to think about in the morning. And a lot of mornings I wake up with tears in my eyes thinking about somebody that's has it a whole lot worse than I got it. I'm going to give you an example of that in my life right now. I have been going through the last few weeks. I pinched a nerve in my back and I can't walk and I can't go down steps. And I've been to the doctor almost every day. And my wife and I went out yesterday and left from the doctor's office, and we stopped and ate lunch. And we were eating lunch and it was it's difficult for me to get anywhere. Anyway, I got in here and we were sitting there, and I looked up and I said to my wife, I said, God, just it makes me so grateful. I saw a man come in. He looked like he was like 20 years younger or more than I am. And he came in with 2 crutches. He could barely walk with a family to eat. And I'm thinking, and here you are, you're complaining, you're going to get okay. I told the doctor today, I said, I'm discouraged, but I said, I know this will work and I know I'm going to be okay. So, it's just, I learned that from a sponsor. Tom taught me win-win. He said to me that whatever's going on in your life, whenever you think it's bad, whatever, he said, you just come and see me. And he said, we'll figure out a win-win. There is a win-win in everything. Well, I told you that the IRS was after me. Well, they indicted me. And the following year, 8 months later, I was scheduled to go to court in Atlanta. And I said, they're going to put me in jail because I owed them more money than I knew what to do with. I said, they're going to put me in prison. Tom said, well, just if you'll go to meetings and you'll learn all your stuff when you get there, you can start an AA meeting. And then he said, 20, 30 years from now, there'll be AA in there, and somebody will say, well, how did it ever get started in here? I said, well, there's some guy from South Mississippi came up here. He didn't pay his taxes. They put him in this prison, and he started Alcoholics Anonymous in here. I didn't think that was funny. I thought that was pretty serious. Tom always talked to me about in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I tend to be a book guy, so I'm not going to quote a lot of pages, but I won't quote pages. I don't try to do that because I think that's I don't need to do that. But in the book, it talks about we absolutely insist on enjoying life, and it talks about laughter. But the first sentence in the paragraph, in that paragraph says, we have been speaking to you of sometimes serious, tragic things. And I think for me, I need to be aware of those serious, tragic things that go on in people's lives. And one of the things that I do today, I go to a meeting today that's pretty regular, that's and I really appreciate because we have prayer lists. And I keep a steady prayer list and I keep it updated, and then I'll throw it away and start all over again. And I keep it. And I've had prayers for people that I've never met, because it's the meeting I'm talking about. It's a meeting that's on Zoom. I've never met. I've met them on Zoom, but I've never met them in person. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my recovery that's just been so important to me. Number one, I had this feeling, and nobody told me this, but I had the feeling that they would not arrest me at an AA meeting. I don't know, that was just my perception. I didn't think they'd arrest me at an AA meeting. So I started to go, like I say, when I got out of treatment, I started going to 3 AA meetings a day. I went to a noon meeting, I went to a 5:15 meeting, and then I'd go to an 8 o'clock meeting. And at the noon and 5:15 meetings, at that clubhouse where they met up in the front room in the front, and you could sit so that you could look out the window. And so I always sat so I could look out the window. I parked my vehicle around the back where I didn't think anybody could see it. And I'd sit so I could look out the window. And what I was looking for is I was looking for dark cars with tinted windows and little short antennas on them, thinking that's the guys that are going to come and get me. And so I'd watch for them. If one went by, I'd sneak out the back door. And I just lived in fear like crazy. Every Thursday, I had to go to the office. They'd give me I'd go to the office, and to the IRS office, and they'd say, when I go in there, they don't joke. Can't tell them a joke. Everything's pretty serious to them. And they'd say, well, we're going to give you a 1-week extension. Come in here next Thursday at 2 o'clock and bring us, $5,000. Well, they might just well said, bring us $5 million. I didn't have $5,000, but they'd say, bring us $5,000 and we'll discuss your situation again. Well, the next week I'd go in there, and I couldn't put it in a check, because if I put any money in a check, the state took it. So I was dealing in cash. I'd go in there with maybe $100, and I'd walk in that office, and I was just whipped, and I'd hand them that $100, and they'd, is this all you got? Yeah, this is all I got. I'm trying, but that's all I got. And they'd say, well, just a second, let me get your receipt. And they'd go back, and the person, they'd come back up and say, well, all right, here's your receipt. We're going to let you go this week. We'll give you till next week, but next week, come back in here and bring us $5,000 and the $4,900 you're short this week. And I just say, oh, crap, Anyway, it was just amazing, absolutely amazed me that I didn't get, they didn't foreclose on me or anything. And I've known a lot of people that they'll foreclose on you pretty quick, and they didn't foreclose on me. And I think that was, again, God working in my life and saying, if we scare him enough, he'll get serious about going to meetings. And I did. Now, at night at 8 o'clock, that's when I thought they were going to arrest me. Now, I was down in the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. So I decided that at night I wouldn't go to the same meeting 2 nights in a row. And I didn't. I went from Slidell, Louisiana to Pascagoula, Mississippi to Hattiesburg, Mississippi. I went to it was about all those counties. That's where I went to meetings. And I wouldn't go to the same meeting 2 nights in a row. And I didn't know how well that was going to serve me in the future, but it did. Anyway, that really got me going to a lot of meetings. And so even today, I tend to go to a lot of meetings. Now, I live in East Tennessee. I'm I'm what you call a Katrina chicken because Katrina ran me out. But anyway, so I got involved a little in service because at my home group that I was going to at the time, they had an election, and I was like sober a year and a half, something like that, and I wasn't even at the business meeting. But after they filled all the spots, there was somebody said, well, we need to fill the alternate spots. And so there was somebody there said, well, I think Gary Miller would work as an alternate GSR. So I got elected alternate GSR. I wasn't even there. And when they notified me, then I went to Tom and I said, what does that do? And he said, and he bought me my first service manual. I have it to this day. I still got it. And he bought me that service manual, and he took me to my first area assembly. That started me in service work. And that really, and by going to the book study meetings and the 12 and 12, particularly the book study meetings, it talks in the big book a lot about what are we supposed to do. I mean, there's page after page after page all throughout that book that talks about service to others. That's what we got to do. It's got to be service to others, and that we have to change our minds. We have to change. Tom explained to me that a psychic change is nothing more than a mind transplant. You can't go to the hospital to get one. It's got to be an inside job. So if you don't get an inside job, you won't get a psychic change. So anyway, I did that. Got involved in the area. I didn't have any money, and I don't have any idea. I just said this the other day. I have no idea how I did some of the service work I did and how I got there, because for some reason I always had enough gas, always was able to get there. I knew what it was like to eat in fact, I say this today all the time when people, I say, if you want me to come to your group and either do a workshop or speak or whatever, the only thing it's going to cost you is a boiled egg and a bologna sandwich. Because I used to go places, and I was living alone at the time, and I ate a lot of boiled eggs and bologna sandwiches, and was happy doing it. Anyway, in 1991, in the fall of 91, I would have been sober right at 5 years, and my business turned around, started doing pretty well, and I was very, very fortunate in what I did, and there was some security involved in some of it, and I had a guy who was going to do some contract work for me for the company, for the business, and he came in my office. I've never been very anonymous. I've always been pretty open. And anyway, he came into my office and he said, it's been a while since I've seen one of those. And there was a big book laying on my desk. And I said, are you in recovery? And he said, well, yeah, no, kind of, sort of. He said, I got sober a few years ago, but he said, I got involved with the church. And he said, we're going to the state penitentiary and once a month and taking church service up there. And I always go up there. He said, would you be willing to go up there? Because I don't know how, they're asking for an AA meeting there. Would you be willing to go up there? Because I don't know how to run one. And I said, well, I don't know, but I'll get back with you. Now, I still didn't do anything without talking to my sponsors. So he no more than left. And I called Tom and I said, told him what happened. I said, what do you think? And he said, can we go tomorrow? And so that started us filing to get in there. And we started in February of 92. It was the first time we got permission and got certified and so on. Went to the penitentiary, and I could talk for 20 hours on the rewards of being at the penitentiary, but I'll tell you a couple little things that were very, very important to me. We went up there. We tried to do we thought maybe we could do a discussion meeting, and we didn't know how many people were going to show up. I'll never forget it. the first time we went there were 53 guys showed up, and out of the 53, there were 7 that had never been to an AA meeting before. We asked them how many had. So there was a lot of people that knew a lot of had been exposed to Alcoholics Anonymous, but of course they all were. None of them were guilty. They were all mistreated, and they were all misunderstood. And so what we did that worked out real well is we said if we do a book study meeting, that'll stop all that stuff. And we did. We started a book study meeting. I'll never forget. And the other thing we did is administration, I think, wasn't real happy with us. We had to be there at I think it was 6 o'clock, I believe it. And they said, if it takes you a half hour to change a flat tire, leave a half hour early. Don't come late, because if you come late, we won't let you in. Now, the penitentiary from my place from where I live to the penitentiary was 97 miles one way. So we had to leave to get there, and we did it on Thursday nights. We didn't miss one Thursday night in 7 years. First 7 years, Tom and I went there every Thursday night. And then we got other people involved, and we started going. There have been a couple times because of a riot or whatever that we couldn't get in, but the majority of the time we get in. I can just tell you that the last time I went to penitentiary was November 17th of 2023. And I can't do it anymore because I can't walk in there. My body just won't allow me to walk in there. But I questioned it. And they said, we want you to come back. And anyway, there's a story behind that. But they said, if you can't walk in, we'll provide a wheelchair. My ego is so great that I was so determined I was not going to let them do it. And I did make it in, but it was a tough job. I'm going to tell you a little experience of that. We all talk about the 3rd step prayer, and we took these guys to the book, and they wanted to start working their steps, and we worked out ways for them that they could do things by using just one word or 2 words to say what they needed to say, because they can't write that stuff out. If they write it down, it'll somebody will get it, and if administration gets it, they're in just all kinds of trouble. Anyway, in 1994, a fellow came to me. The other thing we did, then they said, it's the first time I ever did a 3rd step prayer with a group on our knees on the floor, getting on our knees. We all held hands and did the 3rd step prayer at that penitentiary. And we did that on a very regular basis, did it for years and years up there. I'll never forget the first night I was there. I was absolutely amazed, because when I cried all the way home, because I was holding hands with a guy that was in there. One guy was in there for murder, the other was in there for rape. And I just could not believe that that's the kind of thing that I did. But then in 94, a guy came to me and he said, I want to do my 5th step. Would you be willing to take my 5th step? And I said, well, I don't know. I have to talk to administration whether or not they'll allow us to do that. And so I contacted administration. They said, yes, I had to be up there on a Sunday morning, had to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they'd give us till 2:30 in the afternoon. And they'd give us a place that we'd be alone and be able to handle it. Now, the problem was, I knew he didn't know where I lived, and he didn't know that much about me, but I knew him, and I knew why he was there. And so I went to Tom and I told him that this guy had asked me to take his 5th step. And I said, I'm not sure I can do that. So what do you think? And Tom quickly went to the book and said, we can do anything if we're spiritually fit, and we need to be spiritually fit to do what we're scheduled to do. And here's the difficulty. My 17-year-old neighbor lost their life, and that's why he was there. He and another fella had committed that crime. I knew that, and it's hard to explain it, but it was really a contentious situation because my neighbor, they had 4 boys, and all of them were so angry over that whole thing. If they'd ever found out that they knew that I was up there and was in some kind of closeness to that guy, I think that would have caused a real issue. All 4 of those boys are dead today. All 4 of them died of alcoholism, as a matter of fact. But anyway, that's another story in itself. But so I went up there, and I spent the day up there. And this young man had turned state's evidence against against the other fella. The other fella is on death row, and he's doing life, and is actually may get paroled. But anyway, I did I took that 5th step. It was a tremendous day for me spiritually. A lot of tears, a lot of prayers. It was absolutely amazing what God puts in our lives, and to be able to do that. That has served me so well over the years because of other people that I have worked with and had experiences with. It's, I say this all the time. We talk sometimes about how the miracles of Alcoholics Anonymous, it's a miracle. It's a miracle. I think we shortchange ourselves. A miracle to me is 2-part. And I think that we sometimes make light of it. A miracle is when opportunity and preparation meet. And God's responsible for the opportunity. I'm responsible for the preparation. In my life, I would today have right at 60 years of sobriety if I would have been prepared the first time that I ever had the opportunity to do something about my drinking. That never happened because I wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared. So today, I try real hard to stay prepared each and every day. That's a big deal to me. One of the things I do today is I get up. I'm an early riser, have been all my life, and I spend an hour to an hour and a half now because I'm retired and I can do it. But I'll spend an hour to an hour and a half in meditation and prayer and thinking about others and writing a gratitude list. And I just started doing some texting, so now I'm texting people. I want to send out lists of good things. I'm a firm believer in win-win. I save things that I read and quotes and that kind of thing, and I save them. Computers are wonderful, and I save them, and then about once a week or so, I'll send them out to folks, and it's every one of them. I want to make sure it doesn't tell you what you need to do. I want to tell you what I want to give you a positive feedback of. And note, I'm a great one for notes. I got notes all over the place, and I'll just read one of them to you. Love cures people, both the ones who give it and the ones who receive it. This whole thing is all about, in fact, I just today was reading some stuff on how important love is in our lives. And I think it's so important for me, at least, it's so important in today's society not to listen to all the garbage that's out there and get into all this other stuff, but I want to talk about love. How can I, one of the things I like the thing of, if I start ask you a question, and I start out with why, that automatically tells me I'm criticizing you. That tells you I know something you don't know. I'm smarter than you are. But if I start out that question with a how can I help you? What can I do? How can I be of some kind of assistance? And then be willing to do it. That's the other thing. I'm a firm believer in, if I'm not inconvenienced by my service work in Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm not doing enough. I'm too lazy, and I need to look at myself and my inventory and say, I need to be put in a tough spot. And I firmly believe that. That's just me. But anyway, back into my service structure stuff. Of course, like I say, I went to I love AA service. I just absolutely love it. I think some of us are meant for it, and some of us probably aren't. But when I was GSR, I wanted to change. I wanted to change the meaning of what a GSR is, because I was a whippersnapper, and so I thought that as a GSR, I ought to be the grand superior ruler, and so because I wanted to tell people what to do and how to do it. I also wanted, as a DCM, I wanted to be in demand and in charge. I wanted to do that, but then I got into service, and I found out what service really is. And I'm the guy that goes to area assembly to this day. I drive to area assembly from Tennessee to Mississippi, and sit in the back of the room and say nothing, and just be there. And I really think that AA is doing wonderful. I said this to the last area assembly. I said AA is in great hands in Mississippi, and it's the young folks coming in there doing the deal. I think it's wonderful. I go to a lot of workshops, and I've done a lot of workshops. I've done workshops, and I've been very fortunate. People have asked me to do workshops in different parts of the country, and I've enjoyed doing it. But I'm not. That's not what I'm out to do. I'm out to say, how can I be of service? What can I do? What can I do for you? And that's just so meaningful to me. I would love to tell you some of this. I'm doing some stuff right now. It's new stuff for me that I've never done before. When Zoom came out, I didn't particularly like it. I thought, well, that's not a good deal. But one of the things that I did is I'm one of those that I read our literature, and in the fourth edition Big Book that Karen read, that last paragraph of the forward, and that's that was written in 1990. That was written before any pandemic or anything else. It was there. There's been meetings on computers since the early. That's nothing new. But Zoom came out after the pandemic, which is wonderful. Now, it's great for me today because of where I live. It's difficult for me to get to and I'm to go to meetings. When I was on the coast, I could go to 4 meetings a day within 3 miles of my house. Here, I can't do that. If you're going to go to we always say 90 and 90. Well, if you're going to get sober where I'm living right now, you better have a good vehicle and a little bit of money, because you're going to have to do some driving. You're going to be driving 40. I drive now. I go to at least 1 or 2 meetings a week in person, sometimes more than that. But I go to a Zoom meeting every day, and I used to listen to a speaker every day, and that's because I got time. But for me, the one meeting I go to here is 38 miles one way just to get there, and they're in one straight road. The straightest road is my driveway. The rest of it's on mountain roads to get places. So I'm real grateful for that. I'm one of those that I really like it in the back of the Big Book where it talks about contempt prior to investigation, and I really I'll sit and think a long time before I'll start making statements about, well, don't do this or don't do that. I really, I spend a good bit of time when, I was fortunate enough to serve as a delegate from the state of Mississippi, and I took it very serious. That was before the internet, that was before computers, and so they sent all the information, and you had to read it. You had to go to, my mailbox was full every day, and here I am trying to run a business, and I took it very, very serious. In fact, we did I'll never forget, my committee did a conference call, and I was actually on the road in my business at the time, and I stopped everything and said, I'll do that conference call, and I did it. So God's been very, very good to me. God has just been so kind to me to give me the opportunities that I've had, and I I just I cannot say, you know, I think about when I went to treatment. I went to treatment on a Monday morning, and I decided by about Tuesday morning that I had just overshot the mark. I just made too big a deal out of this, and I was going to walk out of that treatment center. In fact, I packed my bags and I told them, I said, I'll be back and after the first of the year. I got things I got to do, and I'll be back after the first of the year. Well, you know, they talked me into staying, and I wasn't very happy about that. I was pretty angry about it, but I could have missed this whole thing. I could have missed everything, all the opportunities I've ever had. The other thing, one of the things I wanted to tell you about that happened at that penitentiary. We were in there one time, and there was a guy. He was getting ready to leave, and he said, and we were talking about how it's really important to get to meetings and go to meetings and make a contact with your AA folks. And he said, well, I can't go to meetings because he said, if I go to, I'm going to be on probation or parole or whatever it was. And he said, I can't leave the county. Well, one of the things I didn't mention is that when I was in service, one of the things that I did is I did a lot of workshops and did a lot of speaking. So consequently, I have been to every district in the state of Mississippi. I have probably been to 70% or more of all the meetings in Mississippi and knew where they were. And he said, so I said to him just quietly, I said, well, where are you going? And he said, I'm going to Como. I said, oh, you're going over the Delta. I said, that's wonderful. I said, what if you'll on Wednesday evening, if you'll go to the library, there's a meeting there at 8 o'clock on Wednesday evening, and there's a guy there by the name of Jim. And look up Jim and tell him Gary Miller said hi. And he's a great guy. He's a great AA member. And it's only because I've been there. I've been to that meeting. I have great friends that and people that I've met throughout my journey in Alcoholics Anonymous, not only in Mississippi, but all over. I have, and I know we're not supposed to put people on pedestals, but I've put some people on pedestals. I've had a great privilege of spending some time with Tom Ivester and one of my really great guys that I really like was David Aronofsky. And David and Gracie were, I just looked at that man as such a wonderful, wonderful man. Bob Bazance is a good. People because I have said yes instead of saying no, and I tend to say yes if I possibly can. And Stephen called me this morning and said, "Is there any possibility you could share this evening?" And there was just no doubt in my mind. I can do that. I can do that. And it's ironically, I'm going to be sharing tomorrow morning on Zoom at 7 o'clock in a meeting out of Georgia. But I said, so my deal was, well, that's great. I can use this tonight to get geared up for tomorrow morning because that's the kind of guy I am. The other thing I'm doing right now, it's been a real pleasure in my life, is I am taking a guy through the steps on Zoom, and when that first happened, I didn't know that I was really concerned about it, but it has been such a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful experience. We've met now twice, and I'm so grateful, and I love AA, and I love the people that I sponsor and work with. I love the people that I meet, and I've checked this meeting. Obviously, I've been to this meeting many times. And I don't come too often. Sometimes I don't come. If I'm doing something else, if I have something that I need to be done or is asked to do in person, I'll go do that before I go to a Zoom meeting. But it's very, very important to me. Anyway, I really, really thank you all, and I thank you for the privilege of being here. And thanks, Karen, for